Hey everyone, John Canandis here with Honest Woodworking. Welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a second since my last video. I've been honestly buried in work, which is great. I can keep doing these videos. It just take an extra minute to do. Regardless, I was asked to replicate a couple of really old, longer stair spindles. This one here. It's about 41 3/4 inches long. Has some fluting in it and some spiral work, 4 spirals that take up about 2/3 of the piece almost. Some really nice detail work, a tenon, and 3 pommels. Now, I'd normally just cut the wood, run it through the joiner and planer, mark it off, put it in the lathe, and turn it all one shot. But it's getting close to the end of the day, and don't really have the time to carve this out today and run the flutes and all that good stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this poplar slab up here, cut a couple lengths off, and cut them oversized, run them through the joiner, through the planer, and then let them sit overnight. And if it's going to move after sitting in my shop for a couple weeks, it's going to move tonight, and then we'll dimension the final thickness and mark it off, and go ahead and turn it tomorrow. And primary reason for that is, number one, it's late. Number two, there's 3 pommels on this piece, 1, 2, and 3. So if I get it all hunky-dory tonight, marked off, and tomorrow it might be a little off, and so will the pommels, and we don't want that. So we're going to take a little extra care, do it right, and that's it. So let's get started. Okay, everyone. So the most important thing to remember here when running material through the bandsaw is get in a position where you can naturally flow through the machine without getting hurt, obviously, but without causing any ridges or ripples or whatnot. It's going to happen here and there, but try to keep your stock straight. So here we go. Going to turn down the mic a little bit and turn on the machine and the dust collector. All right, on to the next part. We're at the joiner now, and I'm sure you'll notice that these are much longer than they need to be. This was about the size of the board, so I'd normally cut them a little bit shorter, but that's okay. Once they go through the planer, they're going to get a little bit of snipe, and it's good to cut the final length. One of the last things you do. So running through the joiner, you're going to notice, the technique you want to use is apply the pressure on the outfeed side of the bed. And we're going to run it through until it's basically flat. Then we're going to joint the adjacent edge against the fence and give us two sides that are flat and square to each other. And then it'll let us run it through the planer. So here we go. We're going to turn on the machine. We're going to turn on the dust collector, and I'm going to turn down the mic a little bit. Okay, I'm not going to bore you with the second one. We will be right back at the planer. We are at the planer here, and this is a super simple part of the process. I'm going to run through a couple times, and then we will move on to the next part. Go and turn the dust collector on and turn the mic down. Okay, again, don't want to bore you with the whole process, so let's put these aside for tonight. I'm going to finish the other one, and then we'll get to final dimensioning tomorrow, and put it on the lathe. See you then. Hey everyone, welcome back. John Cananis on his Woodworking, day 2. I guess it's the same day for you guys. We're at the table saw here today. I went ahead and milled these up to final thickness and did a third piece as well, just in case, because, you know, mistakes happen. And what I've done here is I've squared off the one end, and I'm about to cut these to length on the table saw. Now, when you're working at the table saw, just be mindful, your fingers, your hands, use the guards, all that good stuff. Don't protrude the blade further than it needs to be. So this is a cutoff of one of these pieces. Stand it up against it. You need 2 gullets of the top of the blade showing, and that's more than adequate. So what we're going to do, oh, and by the way, if you have a chop saw in your shop, don't use it for this sort of thing. Chop saws are rough tools. You know, it's tough to get square material off of those things. So use your table saw, take some time to set it up, and it'll reward you. So here we go. We're going to start the dust collector and start the motor on the machine and get these cut up, and we'll move on. So let's talk a little bit about mounting these guys up on the lathe. This center here is by far my favorite center for turning spindles. It's a one-way safety center, and it's not because it's safe, but you could take spindles on and off and put them back on the lathe, and they will mostly run true. And it can't be said, the same can't be said for other centers. Now, it doesn't work in our case here because the spindle is really long, and this particular center requires a considerable bit of tailstock pressure, which would cause the spindle to bow and flex, which we don't want. Now, this is a standard 4-prong center. That's probably what the original spindle was turned with, to be honest. I'm not going to use this one because it's much wider than the tenon that needs to go on the end. So that's not going to work for me. Now, these are great. These are step centers. Same basic principle as the one-way safety center. But you have these really sharp teeth that bite into the material, and you don't need as much tailstock support. So this is going to be our way to fly today. This particular one is just slightly bigger than what the tenon needs to be. So we're going to go with this little guy and see how it all works out for us. All right, going to get it all mounted up. Okay, so here we are. That took a little bit of work trying to get this entire spindle in the frame, but I got it. Okay, mounted on the lathe. The first thing you want to do right now is make sure that it is perfectly centered between centers. Now, what I mean by that is if it's off a tiny bit, any direction, even though I carefully marked this out, what is fibrous and stiffer and softer in certain spots and others. So this metal point's going to find the path of least resistance. So if you are off center at all, these pommels are going to look like they are off center from the turn piece, which isn't cool. It's visually obvious when it happens, and you don't want it to happen. So let's take a step to eliminate that. So what we do is we turn our lathe on, make a tiny nick, and see if it nicks all four corners. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, not too bad. Pretty close. Tiny bit in one direction. So what we're going to do is we're going to take something non-marring, like this wood is good mallet. We're going to give it a tap. Now we're going to check it again. Okay, closer. Just about there. Okay, that's a beautiful thing. Right. Now we have to accommodate the spindle steady. So I'm going to take my continental gouge or 3/4 inch spindle gouge, whichever you prefer. Whatever nomenclature you prefer. And I'm going to, as soon as I can find it, I put it aside. Okay, and here's what happened. I got these turned all while you weren't looking. Okay, actually what happened was I got a new remote for the camera, and the gosh darn thing disconnects after a few minutes of an activity. So I thought you guys were watching and listening, and I went ahead and turned these, and you weren't there. But guess what? Remember that extra one that I made in case I made a mistake? Well, I made a mistake. I started turning the pommel on the wrong side on this one. So we have an extra that we can go over the turning process with, and this actually works out better, I think, simply because I don't have to rush through the whole thing. I could break this down into sections and show you how I do little pieces at a time of this thing. So let me get that set up for you. Now that we've covered how to mount and handle longer spindles, what I've done is I've broken the piece down into smaller sections so we could focus on what we're doing. And also, part of the reason I did it this way is this is how I actually view a piece. When I'm working on something that needs work on multiple parts of the piece, I make decisions as far as what I'm going to do first, why I'm going to do it first, that sort of thing. So usually on a spindle, I'll do pommels first, get those out of the way, and coincidentally on this piece, it makes sense to do those first, and to turn the piece inside here for all the detail, because once we get far to the right, the spindle becomes even thinner and, you know, harder to manage. So let's talk about pommels. I kind of did a really quick one here so you could see what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut both these pommels. I'm going to bring this middle piece around, and then we're going to use a template to manage where the decoration is going to go. So as you can see, what I've done here is I use my skew and I start creating little tiny notches here. Okay, and I work away from the line. When it's time to actually cut on the line, what I do is if I'm working on the left, I use the left side of this bevel and I line it up with my line. I wait to hear a ding and then I lift the handle into the work. All right, and same goes for the right. So let's see how that's done live and in action. Just a moment, let me defog my eye protection here. Okay, here we go. Sorry guys, should have tightened that down. Okay, so again, notch, 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 and make it cut. Okay, let's do this again on the side. Notch, 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 make it cut. Okay, let's take a look what that looks like. Okay, super duper clean. This one I kind of rushed a little bit. It's a little off the line, but same basic principle. Let me clean that up. Okay, there we go. So you just basically look at that ghost image and follow that. So now that we have established the border here, what we're going to do is we're going to bring this around and we're going to work from the inside to the corners, being careful not to touch the sides that we've already cut. Okay, here we go. Let's stop right there. And stop right there. Okay, don't worry about that. That's going to happen. Okay, now what I've done here is I've created this plywood template and I've cut these little notches out, as you can see here. That way my pencil goes to the same spot every time. A little far from the piece, but I think I marked these little, yeah, I did. Yeah, I marked these problems a little closer together than the original piece, so kind of did that from afar, but as you can see, zero margin of error with the plywood and the notches cut into it and the pencil kind of sliding. So what we're going to do here, let's go ahead and mark this out. So let's put little tiny V's here, here, here. Okay. Okay, so this is obviously not where everything needs to be. What I mean by this, Um, the inside of the spindle needs to be a certain circumference. This design detail needs to be a certain circumference. So what we do is we set up a pair of calipers, okay? And what we're going to do is, I think I set it to like 1 1/8 inch. We're going to start right there. Bring our tool in from back. If you've noticed, I've rounded the corners off on this. Okay, that's it. Now, you want to be a little aggressive with how much you push on this, on these calipers, simply because you do want to burnish it, and you'll want something to work down to. Okay. Now, here's the thing. There is a slight taper here, so let's take this down just a little further. Okay, call that good. Now, I am kind of working from memory here, so forgive me if I make any kind of detail-oriented mistakes, but I think I have it in mind pretty good. So what we're going to need to do is remove this material here. So okay, now I've brought it to the larger edge. So whenever you're working a taper, you want to work towards the smaller edge. So let's do that. Okay, we're almost there. Okay. Now, kind of working uphill here, but you have no choice. You have the rest of the spindle in your way. Okay, once we're established that way, there we are. Nice taper. Take a little more. Okay, kind of getting ahead of ourselves. Now, this detail is obviously way too high at this point, so let's take it down a little bit. Now, that's going to leave an ugly edge there, so what we need to do is clean it up. Okay. So, let's redefine our line. Let's take this down a little further. Okay, let's redefine these lines here. So there's going to be a bead. That's going to be a bead. The center is going to be kind of a cove with yeah. Okay, so you'll see I cannot get my skew in this direction to cut these beads the way I normally would. So, I mean, I can get this one, I can get this side, but, kind of stuck after that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take out our handy dandy, well, first of all, let's bring this down a little bit. And take it all the way down because this is not a nice edge that it's leaving behind. But we're going to take our spindle gouge here, okay, and we're going to complete this bead. Okay. Really don't care for these things. I'm going to finish this one. Okay. Okay, so let's define our little shelves here. What we're going to do is right there. There. Okay, and our cove is going to go right between those. Okay, and what I want to do is I want to get that cove a little deeper than the actual inside of the column here, so just another cut. There, oops, don't do that. I was lifting the tool away and it caught, so, you know, just pay attention to what you're doing. Okay, let's take these in. Here we are. Okay, and I'm going to say that's pretty good. Okay. So we look a little fuzzy there in the center. Okay. So that's the left side of the piece. Now, the right side, sorry, gotta write these down again. The right side is also too high. So let's bring that down also. Okay. Okay. Is that enough? Yeah, pretty much. Okay, so I think this was kind of like a dome here. Okay, again, I can go this direction, but I just can't go the other. So you know what? I'm just going to cut the rest of this with a spindle gouge. So there's a little bead here. Okay. And I think basically there's like a little shelf sort of thing here. Yeah. And then there's a cove here. Okay. Okay. And yeah, I think that was it basically. So let's clean this up here. Okay. Alright. And that's basically it. You know, as far as sandpaper goes, don't go crazy. This is paint grade. I did not cut any for myself. So yeah, here. Did most of this with this cue, so I'm just going to use some 220. You turn the other down if you want. I kind of like the speed, to be honest. Okay. Ouch. Check those palms right here. Nah, they're not too bad, just don't get caught. So basically, sandpaper is not to shape, it's just to remove tool marks. And that's exactly what I'm doing. You'll see those lines from my skew disappearing. The hard edges off these beads kind of going. If you gotta do something like that, just take your sandpaper, put it in there. You know, and again, I hope I got close here. I guess we'll check the images after and see how I did. But you know, that's basically it. Okay. I guess I could spend a little more time sanding here. But again, you know, paint grade stuff. So, you know, this is the top of the pommel, the top of the spindle, and or bottom of the spindle. Yeah. Not sure how that works, actually. I'd have to see the staircase. But, you know, let's move on to the next piece. For the last part of the turning here, I've taken us down around and I've penciled in all the design that is going to go on this piece. Now, I kind of went nuts. All I would really normally do is the two beads, which is this one here and that one there. And that's enough for me to, you know, visually add on the rest. But what we need to do is create a space where we can work comfortably on the detail, and the you know, we start the taper and the rest of the spindle is not in the way. So let's go ahead and make some V-cuts here. Yeah. Okay. We're just basically outlining all of the design elements, so we can eliminate the rest. As a matter of fact, right now would be a great time to measure this out. So I have a set of calipers here set to where this taper is supposed to be at. So there we go. Let's do this one also. Okay, great. The other place that there's looks like part of the spindle continues is right between the two beads with the accompanying detail. So right in here, you know, just to avoid the fuzzies, we're gonna do this. And I'll show you a trick here too. Let's take the parting tool and part this down to where the rest of the spindle's at. And you could just kind of keep an eye between here and here. Your eye is pretty good at gauging where that's at and making this even. Okay, now that we're almost there, what you want to do, you know, as you know, a parting tool leaves a really, really terrible surface. So just start with just the point of the tool, take it to the right. Point of the tool, take it to the left. Point of the tool, to the right. Point of the tool, to the left. Okay? And, you know, it's not going to leave a pristine surface, but it's going to be a lot better than if you just part it down. So, let's create the taper here. Okay, let's run a little backwards here. As you can tell, I'm not removing a lot of stock right now. That's not what this is about. Right now, we want to, you know, eliminate the possibility of tear out and get the piece final shaped. Okay, if you hear that vibration, you can eliminate that. I'll show you how. Just like that. You support the spindle from behind with an equal amount of pressure that you're applying in the front. And since you're allowing your tool to do the cutting for you, you're not applying that much pressure at all. Okay, so now here, On this side of the spindle, I want to leave most of this meat here. That way there's less vibration while I work on the detail. So I'm just going to remove some of it. Okay. Right there. Okay, and then we can remove the rest later. Okay, so find the bead, find the bead. Matter of fact, you know what we're going to do is bring this down a little bit. We don't need all this height. There we go. Okay, so let's cut our 2 beads. Camera's kind of red on top of me. Okay. There we are. Okay, let's clean up inside here. Again, with just the point of the hole. Okay, and you'll see that that is basically at the same height as the top here. We're going to do the same thing here once we finish this design element. Okay, so let's cut this bead out here. And wow, this is weird. Guess I'll place the camera in a better spot next time. Okay. Let's bring this down a bit. Okay, so what we're going to do here is let's do a little outlining. That should be good. So I'm going to create a cove here. Cove here. Okay. You can bring this flat in a little bit. Okay, do the same thing with this one. There we are. Redefine this shoulder here. Okay. There we go. Sorry about the shake there, guys. Again, I'll find a better spot for this camera. Can't really work so easily on the piece either because of the positioning. But it's working out okay. Okay, and okay, a little hump here. It's okay to work backwards if you have no other way to get into the element. Okay, and that's basically it. Now I would catch the rest of the spindle up here, going this way, and you know what? We can redefine this cove a little bit nicer. There we go. Okay. Okay, there we are. Now, in the one last thing to add. In the previous video, you'll notice I was using a piece of cloth back paper. I prefer this stuff usually for most things. However, when you are trying to preserve detail, not the best paper in the world. Even this cheap paperback stuff works better because you can kind of get right up there on the detail and not touch the adjacent part. You can curl it nicely. Okay. Works great for situations like this. Now you can say, why wouldn't you use this all the time? It's not that good. This is like the only plus to using this paper is the fact that you can get in there and preserve detail really nicely. Also, something that about sanding is right about now is where you should be turning your lathe down. It works much better for most people. Doesn't work for me. It doesn't. I kind of like sanding at higher speed. Works as long as you use the paper properly. And allow the lathe and sandpaper to do the cutting. Works kind of okay. Okay, that's it. Hope you're enjoying so far. Stick around for the next part. I have somebody in the shop here, and as soon as I clicked off, he said, "Why don't you stop the lathe?" And I guess I do every time. So this is what it looks like. Again, I didn't spend the whole heck of a lot of time sanding it and making it perfect, but again, paint grade stuff. Okay, be right back. We're getting ready to cut these flutes, and here's where we're at. This 1/4 inch core box bit is a little too small, short, to be able to plunge into the flutes, simply because these pommels are in the way. Spindle's really tiny. This is my fluting jig, which I've used on other things, and it's been great. But this time, it can't reach all the way down. So what I'm doing is I've put in a straight down spiral bit in the router, and we're going to make these flat bottom flutes, and then we're going to finish them by hand with the scratch stock. So that's cool, actually. We're going to go over that. So let's get these cut. We're doing 8 flutes per spindle, and here we go. Spirals. I have this all marked off, and although I prefer Western saws, there's nothing like a pole saw to work on a round piece suspended in the air. These just work a little better for me. Now what I want to do here is just saw enough to get my teeth into the material. That's going to be deep enough for me. If I needed to go deeper, I'd probably put a piece of tape just to let me know, hey, stop here. But that's not necessary at this point. So let's just do that. Oh, and here's something I notice a lot of guys using saws doing this. You have a whole saw plate, so just use the whole thing here, okay? It's quicker, more efficient, less tiring, the right way to do it. And just keep following it around. try to cut at the same level every time. In other words, if you're going to cut from the top, go ahead and cut from the top. Don't switch to doing this or this because the stroke of your arm is going to change. And, you know, not saying that this has to be perfect. If you're off a little bit, this is not the end of the world. You still have to carve this out. This is just a guide for your chisel. You know, I guess I shouldn't have been saying all those bad things about bad sewing because there we go. A little better. I guess I can't talk and saw at the same time. Just a quick add on to the kerf sewing part here. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Western saw, so I went in the direction that I would normally go with the push saw. This is a pull saw, so it actually works much better if you travel from this end of the spindle to the other. You can just kind of follow your lines. Much quicker. Ooh, don't do that. Much more accurate. Again, I can't sew and talk. So I'm going to stop now and continue this so I don't damage the piece. Now that our saw kerf is where it should be, let's get to carving the details into this. I'm going to use an 11-3, which is going to get me right down into the base of the flute. And I'm going to use that all the way around. Now, carving up on the lathe is a little different than carving on the ground. I can't really, you know, there's no place to rest my hands. So you got to use your body and your thumbs and be very, very careful because you could stray from your cut very easily. So little cuts. We're going to go through and use some rasps to make this all nice and pretty at the end. But right now, we want to establish the basic shape and get to the bottom of the saw kerf. And yes, you are correct. This is going to take a minute. But as you can see, you know, it's not so bad. And I'm not going to follow the one spiral all the way through. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a section at a time so I don't have to go back and forth. And you'll notice that certain parts of your piece carve a little easier than others. All has to do with grain. Now if you do this, you'll notice my left hand is in front of my right, which you shouldn't do, except for when you absolutely positively have no other way of doing stuff. You can't flip the work around, you can't use the opposite hand. In this case, I need the one hand to assist the other. These little tiny micro knots. Okay, first little part's done. I'm going to continue this all the way around, and then I'm going to introduce the rasps. when you get to the ends, turn your tool around. That way you don't overshoot, because you will overshoot. Okay. I'm going to take this all the way through, all the way down. And I'll be back with the set of rasps. We'll make this look nice. Be right back. So, rasping these spirals. What we're going to do here is we're going to use 4 rasps. A number 7, an 11, a 13, and a 15. Going from coarse to fine. We're going to use this number 7 first to define our groove all the way through. And then once we do that, we're going to use the 11 to refine a little bit, the 13 to refine a little bit more, and the 15 to give us a nice finish on the piece. Probably won't even need sandpaper on this. So the way we do this is you use the edge of your file in the groove that you've created with your chisel, and you rasp straight ahead. What you're doing is you're refining this edge. Now, unlike the chisel work, I like to take this all the way through to the end of the spindle, because I am making one continuous edge here. If you'll see, the rough surface that the chisel left behind is being refined flat with this rasp. Once I go through all the way on the same spiral, I'll turn this rasp around and I'll have a little bit less work to do going back through the spiral. The round edge already did a lot of work for me on this end. So we're just getting these to match at this point. Creating a tiny belly on this side and creating a nice flat all the way through. Once I'm through, and this is just for the sake of brevity because I'm not going to switch tools until I through with all 4 spirals, I'm going to use this number 11. And I'm going to do the same process. Okay, refining the edge that the 7 left behind. And then I'm going to take this rasp and I'm going to pitch it this way a little bit. And I'm going to start creating that round all the way through. Okay, now keep in mind, when you want, we'll cover that in a second. And then I'm going to come through and I'm going to do the same. Okay, I'm also going to use the belly this time. You're going to find yourself maybe starting backwards, which is a lot of times what I do is I start with the belly first and then I go through in the round. Okay, once you're through with that one, you're going to take this number 13 and you're going to refine all the work that you did with this number 11. This number 13 is going to smooth out your curves. It's going to clean up anything left inside this groove. Okay, and you might want to start thinking about direction of rasping here. Although these are hand stitch rasps and they do rasp in all directions, you are going to have one cleaner edge than another. So where your grain is supported, in other words, here there's grain coming back, this is going to give you a clean edge. Where it's unsupported, meaning these are the long strands here going into the shorter ones, it's going to give you a rougher edge, but you can, since these are bidirectional, you can go this way, or, I mean, you can turn the rasp around and you can work whatever way you're comfortable. Now, this number 15 is basically going to just refine everything. Any boxy looking edge that was left behind, anything that, you know, little tiny bits of tear out or even stuff on the surface, you're going to be able to go over it with this 15 and it's going to give you a really nice surface. This is what it's going to wind up looking like in the end, right here. which is pretty decent for, you know, having everything hand cut. Okay, I'll put together some finished products soon and show you what it's all looking like at the end. Okay, so there we have it. They are complete. These spirals came out really nice. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you like and subscribe, and see you soon.